BookTube Nation, I'm Sam here again with the Baron of eBooks, and I am admittedly behind on my tags. I've been meaning to film a few tags. Some wonderful ladies have tagged me, and today I'm going to go ahead and get one of those out to you. I'm so excited to do this tag. It was originally created by the wonderful Shannon at Shannon Reads. I'll go ahead and link her channel below. Please go ahead and check her out. She reads mostly YA, but she does post videos very often, and she's active in the community. I took a photography class in college, so I do enjoy it. Mostly I only do nature photography. I'm not very good with portraits, but I do enjoy it as a hobby and I find it very peaceful. I had to look up a couple of the meanings of a couple of the photography terms. It's been a while since I took my class, so but it was a lot of fun to refamiliarize myself and to pick books to match those particular topics. So the first question is fast shutter speed. Name a fast-paced book. And the book I've selected for that, it's called Shade by Grahame-Smith Reddy. And this is part of a trilogy. I've only read the first book, but I really did enjoy it. It is kind of a paranormal romance, YA, adventure kind of. Anyway, it's really kind of interesting. There's something that happens, and I don't want to give too much away because there's a lot of spoilers, but there's something that happens and it makes it so that like people that have passed away can be seen by the younger generation. Anyway, it's really interesting. There's a lot of world building. It does take place in our world, but obviously with a twist. So anyway, I really enjoyed it. It's really quick. It's really fast paced. If you are into paranormal at all, or you're just looking for a good kind of YA romance with a twist. The next question is slow shutter speed. Name a slow-paced book. And I picked for this one Folly. I believe this is pronounced Marthe Jocelyn. I read this a while ago and I did give it 4 stars, but it is a much slower paced book. There's some harder topics in here, like children that were brought to foundling hospitals and things like that. So there's a lot of like, you know, like adoptions, and but back then, of course, this is historical fiction, so things weren't quite as it was even more difficult, I would say, for children back then, though the system, of course, today still has its faults. A lot of times back then, if children ended up in that type of position, they ended up on the streets, which does still happen nowadays, of course. But in this one, there's a gentleman who started a foundling hospital, I believe, and it kind of goes into that. But it is kind of heartbreaking in places. It's, especially if you've experienced anything like that, it definitely has some triggers in there for you know, separation of family, loss, things like that. But I thought it was important for the time period, and it kind of opened my eyes a little bit more towards how that was handled in that particular time period. Most of the times, even though this was still a difficult road for these children to go on, the children that ended up in these type of places typically fared better than other children. You know, of course, there were still workhouses and things like that back then. There wasn't really like restrictions on age as far as work goes, so children could be worked to the bone at a really young age. It was a hard read, but if any of that sounds interesting to you, or if you do just like historical fiction and YA, I would give it a go. It's very, in my opinion, it's well written, and the subject matter is important, but a little bit more gritty. Number 3 is Pretty Picture. Name a book with a pretty cover. And I couldn't resist. I just recently read this, but I love my new copy of The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I actually have another copy that's equally as beautiful, just a little bit different. But I wanted to show you this one today. I just love these word cloud classics. They have like the different different quotes or different characters from the book written like up and down, and I'm really into green right now, I guess because spring is coming around and everything is blooming. But I really absolutely Love this cover. Okay, next is ISO, which is to name a book that brightens up your day. And for this one, I had to pick Angela Thirkell's High Rising. I myself am from a small town in New England, and I was really yearning for that feeling of small town life, where people know people and things are simple. And I found this one. It takes place in a small English village, and it's set around the holidays, and it was absolutely everything I needed at the time. Next is Leading Lines. Name a book that drew you in. And this one is coming up in my next wrap up, but I could not mention it because I thoroughly enjoyed it. And that is The Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. And this, I hate to compare books, but it was pitched as the diverse Harry Potter. It takes place in Africa, and it is about a young girl who, of course, finds out that she is different and she may belong to a certain group. And I don't want to give away any spoilers, but basically there's magic in the world. Not everybody knows it's there, and it's really just a wonderful, beautiful journey about this young girl's experience into learning who she is and learning what it means to be the woman that she's going to become. And it's absolutely wonderful. She learns more about herself, more about her family, more about her culture. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can't wait to pick up the second one, which is out now, so I just got to get that in my little hands. This was one of the books in a long time that I've read from YA that really made me feel like I was in the place. And that's hard to do. Setting is really important to me as a reader. I would say it's probably the most important thing to me, and this book really does it nicely. Next is Wide Aperture, a book that really opened your eyes. And for this one, I had to pick one that I read earlier this year, and that is Year of Wonders, a novel of the plague by Geraldine Brooks. And this book, I was a political science major in college, so I did study some history. It goes hand in hand with that. So I knew of different plague outbreaks and things like that, but I didn't know to the extent how they affected people, how they affected different classes, and it really, if you're at all interested in the plague or the historical fiction time period, this is the year 1666. I highly recommend it. It is a slower book, but it is definitely character focused, and it will enlighten you. Next question is an unusual or interesting focal point. Name a book that has an unusual plot. And for this one, I haven't read this book in years, but it definitely came to mind with that question. And that is the very prolific Toni Morrison's Beloved. Now, this book will probably break your heart. This book, it shows a side of slavery that many people probably haven't seen or haven't thought of. This book takes place after our main character is a free woman, but it goes back and discusses things that have affected her. There is some magical realism present in this book, but the whole time you're kind of questioning it. You don't really know, is this meant to be? Is this not? Is this so? And you're constantly asking yourself questions about what's real, and it is a very important book. I will not say it's an easy read, but it is very important. Like I said, I read it many years ago, and I still think about it sometimes. So if any of that sounds at all like something you would be interested in, I highly recommend it. Question 8 is narrow a depth of field. Name a book with a blurred ending that you were not seeing what was coming next. And for that, I had to pick Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. I tried to read the other one, the Pride and Prejudice with Zombies, and I got about 3/4 of the way through, and I just got distracted. It didn't pull me in as much as this one. This one, I really enjoyed it, and that's crazy because Abraham Lincoln is my favorite president. Like I said earlier, my degree was in political science, so I've studied tons and tons of political literature. I've studied tons of his campaign trail. I've studied his childhood, so you would think, right, like, you know what's gonna happen. But I think that's why I had to pick this one, because I do kind of know what the history books say, and then you read this and it's like, what? Like, no way. Yeah. So, but anyway, even with all that said, I really did enjoy it. I found it really fun. I think because I like Abraham Lincoln so much, I could really get behind him as a hero. It almost felt like he had superpowers. So anyway, it's fun. It's nothing to take too seriously, but I did really enjoy it, and definitely unexpected for me. Question 9 is large depth of field. This is to name a book that was predictable. Now, usually if you hear that a book was predictable, it's maybe not enjoyable. And for me, that wasn't the case at all. The book I'm selecting is Audrey Niffenegger's The Time Traveler's Wife. And I read this a long time ago, but I do still go back and think about it. This book must have been really complicated to write. The reason I picked this one is because with the time travel, you can you get some like information about things that are coming in the future, because the timelines are all skewed and it's like a back and a forth, and your present might not be the other character's present. And so anyway, so you have some information about things that are coming up in the future before they actually happen, but it's done absolutely beautifully. I really enjoyed this book. It's got a beautiful romance in it. It's got excellent writing. It is, like I said, how it all connects and fits, and I tend to be a very critical reader. I can usually find plot holes, and even like if people haven't connected timelines correctly, things usually stand out to me, and I had no issues with this book. It flows very freely, even with all the skipping around. If you're not used to books that are written out of a traditional timeline, this might be a little jarring, but it's worth it. And you do get some different perspectives throughout, from like the two main characters, but it is very well written, and I think a thoroughly enjoyable journey. And that's all the questions today for the photography book tag. I have to thank Shannon again for the tag. I really enjoyed doing this and coming up with the books. It gave me a wonderful opportunity to go ahead and look at some books I haven't looked at in a while and remember reading them and how I felt while reading them. So that was a really nice experience, so thank you. And now I need to tag some people. So who am I gonna tag? Now, if you've already done this, just let me know down in the comments, but I hope you haven't. I would love to see some new people do this tag. First is I'm going to tag Jordan from The Lost Reader. I'm going to tag Cassie from Cassie's Bookish Corner. I'm going to tag Hannah from Hannah's Books and Other Things. I'm going to tag Leslie from Leslie Reads Books, and Olivia from Read by Liv. And like I said, I'll link all their channels below. Please go ahead and check them out. They're wonderful ladies. I hope that you guys get a chance to do this tag. I would love to see them in the future. And thanks again so much for being here with me today. If you like what you had to see, please go ahead and click the subscribe button below. You can also hit the little bell icon so you'll be notified when I post new videos. Please go ahead and feel free to either friend me on Goodreads or follow me on Twitter. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Farewell for now. Bye-bye.